there, Pokemon trainers and fans. Welcome to Tipsy Spinda. I'm your host, Tipsy, and today we're going to get on a little controversial topic. Today we're going to talk about Pokemon that I happen to like that a lot of other people really don't. So this is more of a top 10 of Pokemon that I like that a lot of other people are not quite fond of. So, let's get into the controversy, starting with number 10. Number 10, we're going to be looking at a Pokemon that, well, no one really seems to hate. I've just never seen it on a top 10 favorites list. That would be Wooper. Now, I started out with Pokemon Silver version, so I started in Gen 2, with the Game Boy and everything. And Wooper was one of the first water types I ever found, other than, Totodile or Magikarp. And it also happens to be the first shiny I ever caught, ever, except for like the red Gyarados, but that doesn't really count. So I have a lot of fond memories of this one. Now, compared to the Beta Sprite, which a lot of people seem to be very fond of, at least according to all the memes I see on Instagram, I can see that a lot of people like the Beta Sprite. But, if I had to compare them, the Wooper we ended up getting versus the Wooper we could have had, I would say is much better, at least to me. Besides, just look at that face. He's derpy, he's cute, and at the same time, he's an axolotl, which is like a really cool amphibian. Continuing our list with 9, we move on to one that's kind of forgettable, but at the same time kind of weird. That being Lickitung. I mean, it's like a weird chameleon with a really long tongue that just hangs out everywhere he goes. I remember as a kid, Jessie from Team Rocket had one, and I thought it was hilarious that she ended up trading it for Wobbuffet by accident. So it's like, bye Lickitung. And the fact that there's an ice cream Pokemon like Vanillite, and there's also this weird lizard guy who always has his tongue hanging out, just makes me feel like he would be the natural predator of Vanillite. It's just great. I think it'd just be hilarious. Being said, its evolution, Licky is just plain horrible. It's an abomination. It should never have existed. It is the most unnecessary thing to have ever been made in Pokemon. That's saying a lot. I mean, there's a freaking set of keys, man. And this is more unnecessary than that. This looks far better than this. Like, I know they might look similar to some people, but to me, there's a massive difference in just how they look. I mean, this basically looks like he ate too much of the Vanillite. Like, this picture is actually happening, and that's how this obese abomination came to be. Alright, coming in at number 8, we have Druddigon. Now, a lot of this has to do with, my favorite type is Dragon type, and there just aren't a lot of dragons that I dislike. There are some that I don't like as much as the others, of course. There's plenty of them, so it's like, okay, some I'm gonna like, some I'm not gonna like as much. But for me, Druddigon is like the most generic dragon type there really is. I mean, he's intimidating looking, or he would be if, you ran into a real one, if such a thing was real. And plus, he lives in Dragon Spiral Tower in the Gen 5 games. It suits it. It's like the generic dragon thing. And I feel like its anime appearance can look a little goofy, but still, I kind of like goofy. I'm a goofy guy, you know what I mean? And this also might not be a very popular opinion, but I actually like the shiny one. It's green and orange in a way that hurts my eyes, but at the same time, it's oddly charming. I don't understand, but hey, it is what it is, man. I just feel like Druddigon is severely underrated. On to number 7, which is a bit more controversial than anything I've said so far. We have Jinx. Yes, that's right, I actually like Jinx. Don't judge me. I know there's the whole Nicki Minaj comparison to Jinx thing, which has kind of become a running joke on YouTube, especially with Smosh, or was it Honest Trailers? I can't remember. There was something where they nicknamed a Jinx Nicki Minaj or something like that, and I thought it was hilarious. But while I'm not a fan of Nicki, I am a fan of Jinx, because Jinx doesn't make horrible music. That said, even though I started with Gen 2, I never really had a Smoochum. What I did during that time, I just caught a Jinx and kept it on my champion team, even though I never actually used it in battle. It was always just that one that he kept around and never used. Although, oddly enough, I never boxed it. And here's the really controversial part. This is what Jinx used to look like. And this is what it, used to look like versus what it looks like now. A lot of that change had to do with the international release and controversy regarding blackface, which is not exactly a popular thing anymore, or really should never have been, but you know how that is. And what I really like about Jinx is that, it's human-like, but it's not human. It feels more alien, and me being a Star Wars fan, which I am, I really like things that look very alien. I don't know, don't judge me, it's just the way I am. Although this is probably the one thing I really don't like about Jinx, is that she looks way too much like Nicki Minaj. Now for number 6. Now this one falls more into the universally disliked spectrum of the underrated Pokemon. Vanillite. It's basically ice cream that is also sentient, so it's sentient ice cream. It is a snack that feels every lick and bite. Like, this image here just becomes less of a joke and more of a possible ethics concern. I mean, just look at what happens when all of the snow/ice cream is licked off of Vanillite. I mean, look how sad he is. See? There's a happy one, there's a sad one. Happy one has ice cream/snow, the other one is bald. Like he's in his mid-30s. Now, of course, a lot of people have a problem with its evolution line. Like how Vanillite just becomes more ice cream as it evolves. And then even more ice cream later on. To the point where it starts to grow a straw, okay? Some people complain about this. I think it's kind of cool, especially considering my favorite snack is ice cream. And, yeah, I say cool because it's ice type. That was totally an intended pun, not an accident, I swear. Why? Come to think of it, this actually kind of makes me come up with a little bit of a quick little side theory for number 5. Speaking of number 5, this one is a bit more creepy, and, there are some people who like it, some people who don't. I know a few YouTubers that just can't stand this one because of how creepy he is. Though they like how he was treating Galar. That's right, we're talking about Mr. Mime. The weirdly humanoid, possible Ash's dad Pokemon that... yeah. Like, seriously, this might actually be Ash's dad. Like, for real. Of course, I'm joking, that's not actually what I think. More on that in a later video, but for now, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. People already thought Mr. Mime was creepy, but when you add the Detective Pikachu version of it, it's just way, way creepier. Then you add a Funko Pop to the mix, and it just makes your skin crawl. Like, seriously, look at those eyes. Those dead, soulless, creepy eyes, and that smile. Look at it. It's so creepy. Now, on to my little side theory. This is more of a joke, but you ever notice how Galarian Mr. Mime is an ice type, and Mr. Mime looks like that creepy ice cream guy who just, drives through your neighborhood with the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do thing, and he, like, little ice cream truck, and he serves kids ice cream? What if Mr. Mime plus Vanillite equals Galarian Mr. Mime? Like, he went from an ice cream man to an ice skater/tap dancer dude. Like, just look at this. This makes sense. This makes so much sense in the most sensical way it can make sense. He's like, hey kids, you want some ice cream? Yeah, totally. And that's how this happened. And thus, the vicious cycle of diabetes caused by overconsumption continues. Tragically. And hilariously. Now, what I like about Mr. Mime is the fact that it's hard to get, and I like having things that are really hard to get, and I'm more referring to, like, say, Gen 1, when you had to trade an Abra or a Clefairy to this one random guy on a route to get it, but you couldn't get it in the wild. And what frustrated me the most is that you can't just get one without the nickname. I don't like to nickname Pokemon very often, Though sometimes I do, it just depends. But that was like my only frustration with it. I actually like Mr. Mime, partially because he's creepy. Now onward to number 4, we have Chestnut, whom I think is just straight up the most, or maybe second most underrated starter in the entire game. Or games, plural, I guess. Every time I play through Pokemon X, I always pick Chespin. Now, there was one time I tried Froakie, and, you know, the Greninja line's cool and all. I'm not a big fan of the Fennekin line just because of all the ear hair. But Chespin is just the right balance of cute and cool. You know, he's like a little chipmunk with quills and stuff. He goes from that to, like, the fat kid you hang out with in the cafeteria who, you know, yeah, he's kind of weird, but he's hilarious, and he makes everybody laugh and want to be around him. And then from there, he ends up becoming this big mix between a giant chipmunk and a giant turtle thing that's just so cool. Not to mention, the shiny here is tremendifique. And yes, I did just try to speak French with a Russian accent. Don't judge me. This whole thing is about me being weird and having weird opinions, so here we are. And his whole grass fighting typing is just on point. You know, it's not some wimp that you can't beat the game with. Chestnut is excellent. And his signature move with the grass shield where he protects himself and hurts the opponent, I feel like that's just really cool. Especially the way it's animated. And, you know, considering that when I play a video game with a class system, I usually go with the tank anyways, so Chestnut just kind of screams me, you know what I mean? And now I suddenly find myself wanting to shiny hunt for a shiny Chespin so I can end up with this. But I wonder if you can soft reset in Gen 6 to do that, and how many times it would take. Challenge accepted! Number 3 is actually quite fitting, especially considering this is actually a trio of evolutionary lines that, by a large portion of the fan base, is very, very hated. It doesn't receive a lot of love. And that trio is the Elemental Monkeys from Unova. Basically your second starter set for one region. Yep. You got 3 monkeys that fire, grass, water, yeah, it's basically a second starter set. Now, for me personally, I don't really hate them. Especially, like, the base. You know, I like Pansear, I like Pansage, I like Panpour. Now, I get it if you're not a fan of, say, Simisear. I mean, look at him. Trust me, I get it. We have a way better set of fire monkeys from Gen 4, which came before these guys. I mean, it's kind of hard to beat Chimchar, Monferno, and Infernape. Especially Infernape. I mean, he's basically the Super Saiyan of Pokemon. He is Goku. And Panpour is basically a sea monkey with dreads. And let's face it, if you're gonna give a Pokemon dreads, they gotta be done right. Not like that. And then there's the fact that, you know, sea monkeys went out of style in like the 90s, if not earlier. If they ever really were a thing, no. Just no. There should not be a Pokemon based on that. Simisage, on the other hand, yes. I give him a big thumbs up. Just like this little guy right here. I mean, the hair is cool, the design is cool, and really he's my favorite Pokemon that evolves with a Leaf Stone. I always wait until my Pansage knows Seed Bomb before I evolve it into a Simisage. Simisage is awesome. I don't care what you say. Which, funny thing, I actually really like the fact that Unova has a second starter set, basically, because, you know, think about it. How many trainers do you come along, or do you come by in any of the games that have a starter? Let alone... We're not considering Gen 1 in this, because Gen 1, you know, it was kind of given most people start with Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, but in all the gens following, you don't really find other starters outside of yours and your rivals, and people like that, and maybe sometimes at like a battle facility. So I kind of like that idea. Because, then, other people are having starters that maybe you don't. And since Unova's based on different ideas for ideals and truths and all that, I feel like that also kind of just adds into the theme, and I love it. Number 2 is arguably one of the, if not the most forgettable Pokemon ever. And probably wouldn't even be on this list if it were not for Dorkly. That's right, the YouTube channel that just turned a forgettable Pokemon into gold. And that would be Shuckle. That's right, Shuckle. The bug rock worm thing Pokemon. It just makes no sense at all, but he's just the coolest thing ever. I mean, the Dorkly bits with Shuckle are just hilarious. He's so stupid, and I just love it. Sometimes you just want to be dumb. You watch SpongeBob or Adventure Time, something like that. It's dumb, but it's fun. I mean, here you have Alakazam complaining about having his evolution have to do with spoons, and here's Shuckle like, I bet my evolution is gonna have like 9 spoons, and he just never evolves. Or when Slowbro's Shelter just starts eating Slowbro, so Shelter's like, I'll take it, shoot. He's just bleeding to death and is like super cool with it. All jokes aside, I feel like this needs to be a Pokemon. We'll call him Chuckster. Chuckster is the new Pokemon. It is the one to catch. Get your Master Balls ready, ladies and gentlemen. Don't just ignore the blood loss. It's perfectly fine. It's totally perfectly fine. It's just Chuckster. All jokes aside, I just really want a shiny Shuckle. I mean, look at him. He's blue. And, going from red to blue, I feel like it's basically the whole Spider-Man thing. It just works, And no, I'm not saying Shuckle needs to have a superhero. Although, Dorkly, if you're watching, y'all should totally do that. That would be hilarious. Keep up the awesome work. Shuckle is awesome. I would actually throw a Master Ball at a shiny Shuckle. Don't judge me. I would totally do it. I would not care. I will do it. Gotta get me a shiny Shuckle. Yeah, Shuckle. And now for the most controversial thing you'll ever see on this channel. Number 1. Dare I say it, the most presidential Pokemon ever. That's right, I'm talking about Gumshoes. Oh my god. Gumshoes looks just like Donald Trump. I just think it's hilarious. Like, I'm fairly certain this is not what Nintendo intended, or maybe Nintended? Okay, bad puns aside, this is beautiful. I just think it's the funniest thing ever. See, me, I have a dark sense of humor. I love seeing irony. I love seeing things make no sense and yet at the same time just fit perfectly. Like the building blocks on this here Ultra Beast that Gumshoes Trump turned into a wall to keep out Ludicolo. Poor guy. Like, on my next Sun or Moon playthrough, I'm just gonna catch me a little young goose, and I'm gonna name him Mr. President, and I'm gonna make sure he's male. This just for the whole sake of the joke, just for the sake of a joke, I will have one name him Mr. President or Trump, whichever one will fit. Because even with a character limit, we must make Alola great again. It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be tremendous. See, I could just imagine Gumshoes being like, hello, and hello there, and Wooper just be like, alright, that's been our top 10 Pokemon that I really like that a lot of people really don't. I can see how this might have been very controversial, but it's in the name, Tipsy Spinda. I don't care about controversy. I just want to have a good time. So here we are, having a good time. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and check us out, on one of our other videos. We got another episode of that playthrough coming up with Pokemon Yellow. So until next time, I'll catch you later.